What's going on YouTube? It's Joey back with another Millie Maker video for NFL Week 10. In this video, I am going to highlight two of my favorite stacks for this week that I believe have the potential to win someone $1 million. But before we get into the video, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. It helps us out a lot and it's free, so make sure you hit the button right down below the video. It's free to subscribe. You can also help support the channel by leaving a like and commenting down below any thoughts or questions you may have for NFL Week 10. I personally respond to all comments, so if you want your questions answered or if you want to let me know your thoughts, just go ahead and do that in the comment section down below. Lastly, if you're interested, you can find the DFS Dose podcast on all podcast platforms. We release 2 episodes per week, one on Mondays and one on Thursdays. The links for those will be in the description down below. Now that we have the plugs out of the way, let's recap my Week 9 Millie Maker lineups. So for Week 9, I decided to run a Charger stack in the Millie Maker. Ended up getting on this stack late in the week, so I ended up playing Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, and Justin Jackson, who I thought was one of the better values at running back for Week 9. I brought it back with Henry Ruggs, a player who has an enormous ceiling and can break a slate at any given moment due to his outrageous speed. So I was fine with playing them. I ended up playing Julio Jones and Noah Fant. Julio was one of the best wide receiver plays on the board with Calvin Ridley ruled out. Noah Fant as a correlation with Julio, I liked a lot at 4,600 and a great game script. And then Chase Edmonds, who was one of my favorite plays on the board this week at 6,800, coming into a workhorse role with Kenyon Drake ruled out. I correlated that with Preston Williams at 4,100, 1%, ended up scoring 16 points. But all in all, it was pretty much a dud of a lineup, 112 points. Obviously, won $0 with this lineup. Played the Washington defense, who ended up getting 5 points. So all in all, I am content with this lineup. I thought the construction was good. I could have maybe made some better plays, but I felt like the process outweighed the results with this lineup. I correlated basically every single one of my positions besides defense, where you don't really need correlation in my opinion. And that's how you should be playing tournaments. You should be correlating your lineups to get the max correlation possible. The more correlation equals the better chances that you can get a game right and get up in terms of the tournament standings and win a tournament. You need your lineups to be correlated, although that wasn't the case this week with the Millie Maker winner. If we can see here, the dude who won the Millie Maker didn't really correlate his lineup and hit a bunch of one-offs that snapped, so shout out to him. But in general, you're going to want to correlate your lineups to win tournaments. So I'm content with how my lineup played out, but the results just didn't pan out this week. So now that we have my Week 9 recap out of the way, let's talk about NFL Week 10 on Draftkings, specifically for the Millionaire Maker. I'm trying to help somebody win $1 million if I can't win it myself. So we have another projected high-scoring week for Week 10 according to Vegas. There are 7 games that currently have totals above 50 as it stands right now, and 2 of the most popular games on the slate will be the Seahawks and Rams game and the Bills and Cardinals game. I genuinely believe that those 2 games are great games to stack, and I will have exposure to both, no doubt, in tournaments, but they are expensive. If you see here, Kyler Murray is 8,000, Russell Wilson 7,700, Josh Allen 7,500, and that's not even touching on the skill players for these teams who are also relatively expensive. And just from a pricing standpoint, DraftKings has done a nice job at pricing players from both of these games up, as I just mentioned. So it might be hard to make a plus EV lineup with stacks of these games when a double stack could use roughly 30 to 40% of your salary. If you decide to double stack Russ with Lockett and Metcalf, that is going to use about 30% of your total salary, which will hurt the rest of your lineup's potential ceiling, in my opinion. So it might be hard to play stacks from these games. But with that being said, one of the stacks that I'm going to highlight is from one of these games, and that is a Ram stack. The Seahawks are a team that we want to target every week in DFS. It's just that simple. They are currently allowing the most Draftkings points to opposing quarterbacks and opposing wide receivers by a wide margin. The Seahawks are the biggest pass funnel that we have seen in recent memory, which makes this a great spot for Jared Goff, makes this a great spot for Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. While Jared Goff may be trash sometimes and makes you throw up in your mouth a little when you roster him on DraftKings, this is a clear smash spot for a quarterback that has shown in the past that he is capable of putting up monster games when in the right game script. Cooper Kupp is probably my favorite wide receiver play on DraftKings in tournaments this week, and he is a great stack with Jared Goff. He's obviously in a great spot at home against Seattle, but he is priced up at $6,900, so you do have to pay up for him. But I think Kupp at $6,900 is one of the better plays on the board. Kupp has a 25% target share, which ranks fourth in the NFL on the season, although there is a spiked week with 21 targets, which we can see right here, or 20 targets, which inflates those numbers. Having a 20 target ceiling in games where we can project the Rams to throw more, Kupp makes for one of the best wide receiver plays on the board this week, in my opinion. Robert Woods is also a fantastic play at 6,600 and should catch lower ownership, as I feel like more people will pay up to Cooper Kupp at 6,900 rather than pay for Robert Woods at 6,600. Robert Woods comes into this matchup with a healthy 19% target share as a number 2 option and could see elevated targets in this spot if we project the Rams to be losing or project the Rams to be in a close game with Seattle. And we know that teams facing Seattle run more plays and they throw the ball more, which makes this a great spot for Jared Goff and the Rams wide receivers. I think Josh Reynolds is also in play at 3,500 this week. I mean, he is one of the better salary savers on the board this week in tournaments, and as we can see, he's had elevated target games in the last couple of weeks, 8 targets, 9 targets, as we can see here. So I think he is viable in large field tournaments. And then if we just go to tight end, Tyler Higbee at 3,700, I think is too cheap and can be included in your Ram stacks. We know he has a large ceiling. He had a 3 touchdown game earlier in the year, 28 points. So we know he's capable of putting up big games. So I would include him in your Ram stacks, but I think for this week it is just a Jared Goff, Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods stack for me for large field tournaments. There are also plenty of bring back options too, as the Seattle side of the ball is just stacked with playmakers, including Tyler Lockett, who is 6,500, DK Metcalf is 7,600. Chris Carson, if he's back, is at a cheap price of $6,200. Now, I will say the Rams have been pretty good against opposing wide receivers in terms of DraftKings points per game allowed, but Tyler Lockett at 6,500, we know he has an enormous ceiling, so I think I would include him in the bringbacks. Like I just mentioned, Chris Carson, or honestly, whoever's starting for the Seahawks in terms of their running backs, I think is in play. Chris Carson, DJ Dallas, Travis Homer, if you want to get crazy at 4K, might be in play if Chris Carson is out. But this is the stack that I'm going to be looking to play in a tournament such as the Millie Maker. I think the Rams side of the ball will come with lower ownership. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe people are sharp and they're going to play the Rams side of the ball, especially against a pass funnel in Seattle. But I think they are one of the better stacks this week for week 10. So they are clear-cut my number one stack on the board this week. The other stack that I'm going to highlight in this video is an Eagles stack. Now, I know the game only has a total of 44, which is pretty disgusting, but I think the Eagles' skill position players have good prices in this spot against the Giants on the road. Now, I will preface this by saying I only like this stack in large field tournaments, and it could easily bust, so it's kind of just like a, play the $20, but probably expect to burn your $20. That's what this stack is this week. But I believe a Carson Wentz to Miles Sanders, Travis Fulgham, Jalen Reagor, and even Dallas Goedert stack is in play this week. Carson Wentz is currently a quarterback 1 in PPR formats. Although it seems he's been largely trash on the season, we know that Wentz has spike weeks in his range of outcomes on the season, and this is the Giants team where he faced them in week 7, as we can see here, and put up 31.76 points, his biggest fantasy output of the season so far. So at 5,900, I'm willing to take a shot on Carson Wentz in large field tournaments. I think that this is a great spot for him, and he is one of the cheaper quarterback options on the board this week at 5,900. Miles Sanders, who is 6,400 and is questionable for this matchup, I would expect him to be back, and we know what we're getting when we roster Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders at 6,400 is in a prime position to smash this week against the Giants defense that is allowing 25 Draftkings points per game to opposing running backs and is bottom 6 in terms of receptions per game to opposing running backs. When Miles Sanders is on the field, he is used as a workhorse running back, and those are the players that we want to target in large field tournaments. We want to target players who are going to see rushing volume and are going to see work in the passing game. That is Miles Sanders this week, and he is only 6,400 in a great spot. I believe stacking Sanders with Wentz is fine because, like I just mentioned, Sanders is a major contributor in the passing game when healthy. So I believe that Miles Sanders is a phenomenal tournament play this week and one of my favorite plays on the board if he can suit up and is healthy for this matchup. If not, then basically just substitute Boston Scott with Miles Sanders for what I just said, and Boston Scott will be elevated in my tournament rankings for this week 100%, and he's cheaper than Miles Sanders, obviously, so he'd make for one of the best plays on the board as well. If we take a look at the Eagles wide receivers and, potential stacks that we can pair with Carson Wentz, I think Travis Fulgham stands out at 6,400. Fulgham has been an exciting find for the Eagles' depleted wide receiver core. This is a 2019 6th round draft pick that is finally getting an opportunity in the NFL, and he is making the most out of it, to be honest. He has 5+ catches in every game that he started, 57+ receiving yards in every game that he's played in, and he has a touchdown in all but one game on the season. Fulgham is in a great spot against a beatable Giants secondary and will have no ownership as he's surrounded by players like Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and some other stars that will make Fulgham go overlooked in this spot against the Giants. So I like pairing Fulgham with Wentz in this matchup. I also believe that Jalen Reagor, however you say it, is in play at 4,200. His price tag is cheap. He should be an every down player for the Philadelphia Eagles. 6 targets in his game back against the Cowboys. Ended up scoring a touchdown, only 13 points, but if you get 15 plus out of a 4,200 wide receiver in, a stack of this game, I think that is fine. And then if we go over to tight end, I also would include Dallas Goedert, who is 4,200. in stacks with Carson Wentz. Dallas Goedert is a tight end that we know has upside in the NFL. Week 1, 8 catches for 100 yards, 27 DraftKings points. And with Zach Ertz still on IR with an ankle injury, Dallas Goedert figures to be one of Carson Wentz's favorite targets for this matchup and is only 4,200. So with this stack, you're basically just getting a solid offense for minimum salary, and it will allow you to make a more balanced build and maybe fit in some stud wide receivers or stud running backs in this lineup if you want to stack this game. There are also numerous bringback options that I just want to mention real quick. On the Giants, Darius Slayton at 4,800 I think is a bringback option to consider. Evan Ingram at 4,500 is a bringback option to consider. Darius Slayton at 4,800 has slate breaking upside, as we see here. I mean, week 1 against Pittsburgh, 31 points. Week 5 against the Cowboys, 23 points. Now, the thing with Slayton is the floor is extremely low, but the ceiling is extremely high, and those are the players that we want to target in tournaments. And it all just comes down to if Daniel Jones can complete a deep pass to Darius Slayton. I mean, in this game against Tampa Bay, he ended up going 5 for 56. But when I say Daniel Jones missed Slayton on 3+ touchdowns, Darius Slayton could have easily had 200 yards and 5 touchdowns in that game if he had a competent quarterback. So this is a guy that we know has an enormous ceiling, and he is going up against a beatable Eagles secondary that, I really do not care for. So Darius Slayton is in play. Evan Ingram at 4,500 is in play. The opportunity has been massive for him recently. 9 targets, 10 targets, 10 targets. So if you get 10 targets out of a 4,500 player, I think that is phenomenal. And I want that all day in my tournament lineups because 4,500 is just too cheap for a player that is seeing 10 targets on a weekly basis. But that is going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. Just make sure you do something. That's all we ask. Just make sure you do something. We greatly appreciate it. Make sure you check out our full Week 10 breakdown releasing tomorrow on all podcast platforms at the DFS Dose. You can also follow us on Twitter at the DFS Dose if you want to follow me personally. My personal Twitter is at Joey Carrion DFS. Make sure you check out Ben's Cash Pool video on Friday on this same DFS Dose YouTube channel. And that is going to be it. Have a good one, guys. Shout out to you. Hope you guys win a lot of money this week. Peace.